Yeah, I plan on it. I kind of don't have a choice.
Yeah, baby!
Today is hopefully not spend $3,000 at any point, but I'm gonna be putting head studs in my truck, or at least seeing if I can get this shit done. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do one stud at a time because my truck is perfect. There's no head issues, there's no oil cooler issues, everything is perfectly fine. I don't see the reason to actually spend $3,000 I really don't have to throw away on something that doesn't really need it. But I do want to tune the truck, and I don't want to blow a head gasket and then be forced to do the whatever, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so I got a good deal on head studs. They are the 250 4202s. They're usually like 450 bucks. I picked them up for 200 bucks. Slightly used. Hopefully not too much. I'm going to start with the passenger side. Just got to take out fender boy over here. Got to take out the cooling, cac tubes, take out the batteries. I'm going to see if I have to take out this, but it seems like the passenger side is going to be a little bit more easier to do than the driver's side. So that's what has to come out. And I finally found the nuts. They're in the fucking cab! Yeah. Hit a little bit of a roadblock. It's been a really shitty fucking roadblock. Got Johnny always stroking here. Always stroking. Always helping. So, inside the cab. Inside the fucking cab. There's 5 nuts you gotta take off. And this thing just comes right out. Now, I'm gonna take this out. And I'm gonna see what I gotta do next. I unplugged some hoses off of this. Some wires off of this. Kind of moved everything out of the way. Didn't really want to disconnect the hose going to the radiator, so I just pushed this down, and it's going to give me enough room to get these studs in on the passenger side. So let's get to it. All right, I got one bolt out, threw it in the box. Don't know if you can see it down there, right there. Starting in my torque sequence, gonna put one stud in with the stud lube right here. Gonna torque it to 115 because that's what I took the bolt out at. And once they're all in, I'll go all around them again and torque them to what they're supposed to be. Well, it was a shit show, but I'm studded all on one side to 115. Now we gotta do 175.
And air cooler is in action.
In what?
Air cooler is in action.
I don't even know what the fuck you're saying, but that. And then we gotta do 210, and it's been a real... You know how hard it is to get it to 115 with all that not that much room in there? 210, here we come. All right, 175, here we come. Let's see if Wagner can get a hernia.
Ay, my ass.
Dude, I was standing on that torque wrench. That was not moving. 175, my ass. Yeah, that's good. Ready? Three quarters? Yeah, I plan on it. I kind of don't have a choice.
Yeah, baby! Yeah! have to make
All right,
a
you ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? Oh! That's the sound of 210 pounds of pork right there. All right, day 2. Got everything on 250 on this side. Pretty much got the passenger side back together. Just got to put the little fender well back in. But over here on this side, we got Johnny always stroking and his copyright. That's gonna fucking mute this video. And we're doing the driver's side now. So far, we got the airbox out. We got the FICM out. I put that over here away from the hose because I don't need anything else happening. Had to remove the degas bottle a little bit. Pull this back so it's not spewing out. We got the valve cover coming off. And I'm more than likely sure we have to jack up the engine mount, or take the engine mount off, jack the engine up to get to the stud in the back. I believe that's number 8. So I'm gonna keep documenting as I go, so let's get to it once more. All right, so I just got the valve cover off. That was a real fucking job. The back stud and the back valve cover bolt are highly inaccessible because the way the firewall is made, it kind of comes out like a bubble. So what I did was I took the 2 bolts off the engine mount that's in the cradle, because on a 6L there's like a cradle, and I jacked it up with a jack, and it kind of tilted a little, just enough for me to get my ratchet in there. Hopefully it's enough to get that stud out, or the bolt out and get a stud in. So as I said, jacked up, pulled out. Now let's see if I can get this fucking job done before it gets done. Number 8, and number 8 stud is that one sticking out right there, and I believe I will not be able to get that out even with the motor jacked up a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my cutting wheel, just going to make a little flap there, push it in, that way we can get the stud in and the bolt out and get this shit over with. Alright, so this is going to conclude tonight's truck session, but basically I had to cut a hole in the firewall to get 8 out. I had to slide the bolt up and try and maneuver it in there. So with the stud, all I'm gonna do is stick it in there, and then bam, 8's gonna go in. All right, so today is the 3rd and final day I'll be working on this. Just got all my driver's side studs in. Just got to put everything back in this area, this general region, the FICM, the air box. Gotta put my batteries back in. I should be good to go. Quick thing I noticed, I kept calling that back stud 8. It's actually number 9. It's actually number 9. So number 9 is close to the firewall. That's what you have to cut a hole, or if you're doing it my way, you have to cut a hole in the firewall for. 8's actually like in the front somewhere. All right, let me get this shit back together so I can get this back on the road. To the Headstuds video. I just finished this job today. I'm just gonna give you a rundown. Passenger side, what I did was I took that evaporator box out, took the wheel well out, laid it down out of the way, got to all the studs, no problem on that side. As for the driver's side, what I did was there's 2 bolts going to the engine cradle on the engine mount. Took those 2 bolts out, jacked the engine up, kind of pivoted it, got it farther away from the firewall than it was, but unfortunately wasn't enough. So I took a grinder with a cutting wheel, don't roast me on this, cut a hole in the firewall, just big enough for the bolt to come up, go into the hole on the firewall so I can move it this towards me, out, and then put the stud in and repeat the process and torque it down. Had to push it back a little bit, just enough to get the torque wrench in there. Make sure you got all the tools you need. The studs I didn't realize were 12 point, so what I had to do was make a quick run to Harbor Freight. Halfway through, So you need a 12.11/16 socket, deep socket. For the head bolts themselves, the stock ones, I believe that was a 19mm. So between a breaker bar and a torque wrench, those are gonna be your two best friends on this one. I took the head bolts out at I took the head bolts out at 120 pounds. Put the head studs in at the same torque that I took the head bolts out. In the same torque sequence. If you Google ARP head studs for a 6-liter, you'll get the little diagram. If I can put the little diagram here, I will. So, follow the torque sequence, took one bolt out. Took one bolt out, put one stud in following it. Torqued it to whatever the bolt was at. After the whole head was studs, what I did next was I torqued it up to about 175. And after that, after I went all the way around following the torque sequence, I jumped it up to 210. I had an impact socket and I had an impact extension on the torque wrench. I tried it, the socket does not affect the torque reading whatsoever. But make sure you're using high quality parts here, high quality extensions and everything, because if you're using some Harbor Freight extension and that shit snaps, you risk having metal fall into your engine. So at least put something down, use high quality parts, high quality tools. I personally, the torque wrench I used was a rental from AutoZone. Big fucking mistake. Big fuck you to AutoZone, by the way, because I borrowed it and it broke. It wasn't holding torque, it wasn't working right. Well, it was holding torque, just up to a certain part it would start slipping. I called the AutoZone saying, hey, you know, the torque wrench I rented I think it's broken. And they fucking told me I own it now. I'm like, fuck you, I'm getting my fucking $100 back. I brought it back to somebody else who I talked to on the phone a different day, got my money back, went to a different AutoZone, got the torque wrench, worked beautifully, beautifully. Got everything set, and here I am now. But as for the driver's side, let me just go back to that real quick. Driver's side, pulled the fickum off, degas bottle, air filter, and that's all I really had to pull out. I think I had to unplug the glow plugs for both sides just to get the wire out of the way. But for the most part, the job was pretty straightforward. I got the studs for 200 bucks on eBay. They were previously installed. I looked up and researched. Apparently you can reuse studs as many times as you want, but ARP recommends no more than 5. I guess that's it. This should wrap up the video. Just make sure you put all your nuts and bolts back. Make sure everything else is torqued down. I'll give daily updates if you follow me on my Instagram, which is Stormbreaker60, same as the YouTube name. I plan on giving daily updates because all I did was take one stud out at a time. I didn't pull the heads off because it didn't need it, didn't need the work. I'm just paranoid driving around. I plan on putting an SCT tune on it. Don't want anything to happen because I kind of need the truck. So if I didn't fuck it up by doing this, it'll be a fucking miracle. So I'll give a daily update. Just stay tuned. And SCT tuner coming soon, so hopefully there'll be more videos on that. Have a good night, guys.